It begins in silence, the kind of silence so deep it almost hums, the stillness that sits heavy in the air just before a storm tears open the sky. For decades, Turkey's military seemed locked away in the shadows, bruised and battered by the push and pull of politics, starved of resources, and regarded by many Western defense analysts as a once mighty force, now reduced to a fading giant on life support. But now the world watches, with wide eyes, and a hint of disbelief. The Turkish war machine has reawakened, leaner, faster, harder hitting, and somehow even louder than before. This isn't merely a return to form. It's an Ottoman slap delivered with full force across the smug face of every doubter in NATO's ranks. And yes, before we're done, we'll talk about Bayraktar drones, soldiers running on a steady diet of kebabs and strong tea, and why certain generals are now quietly typing into search bars how to say sorry in Turkish. So, buckle up because we're going in. Once hailed as NATO's Eastern Sword, Turkey's military heritage runs as deep as it does sharp. This is a nation that fielded one of the largest standing armies in the alliance, stood its ground against insurgencies in multiple, unforgiving theaters, and somehow managed to do it all while picking quarrels with nearly every neighbor in sight, and in true Turkish fashion, occasionally even with itself. But in the early 2000s, the tide began to turn, and not for the better. Budget cuts bit deep. Political purges reshaped the officer corps. Internal rivalries became open power struggles. At one point, it seemed like Turkey's generals were more focused on coup plotting than on combat readiness. The once proud Cold War stockpile of tanks, jets, and artillery began to gather dust, its edges dulled by neglect. International observers started making cruel jokes. Turkey's most dangerous weapon is Erdogan's speeches, a brutal line, and at the time, not entirely undeserved. Then came the earthquake moment of 2016, a failed coup attempt that shook the nation and led to a purge of historic proportions within the armed forces. Thousands of officers, from cadets to generals, were dismissed overnight. Entire NATO-linked commands were gutted. To the outside world, it looked like institutional chaos and collapse. But beneath the surface of that chaos, something else was stirring. It wasn't death, it was a rebirth. Today, the Turkish Armed Forces, the TSK, is charging through a transformation so rapid it almost seems cinematic. The old Cold War skin is being shed in favor of sleek, modern, domestically engineered armor and technology. This is the kind of hardware that makes French generals shuffle in their chairs, and Greek Air Force bases quietly double their patrol rotations. And this isn't about military pomp for showy parades down Istanbul's avenues. This is about weapon systems that strike with scalpel-like precision, special forces that operate with ruthless professionalism, and a defense industry that is steadily cutting its dependence on foreign suppliers until it's almost entirely self-sufficient. We are now looking at a country that designs and builds its own tanks, warships, guided missiles, and yes, even an indigenous fifth-generation stealth fighter jet. It might not yet match the capabilities of the F-35 in every category, but the fact it's rolling out of Turkish hangars at all is enough to make Washington sweat. Consider the Bayraktar TB2 drone. Affordable, lethal, and engineered with the rugged reliability of a Toyota pickup, it's become a battlefield legend, capable of knocking out a Russian Pantsir air defense system before most soldiers have finished breakfast. It's earned praise in Ukraine, curses in Syria, and dread in Armenia. And yes, it even has its own patriotic pop song. Because in Turkey, military hardware doesn't just serve, it can become a national celebrity, often with more adoring fans than most Eurovision contestants. But Turkey's resurrection story doesn't start and stop with drones. It's driven by ambition. The TSK today operates across multiple fronts. In the dust and danger of northern Syria, the mountains of Iraq, the conflict zones of Libya, the tense hills of the Caucasus, and increasingly, the strategic waters of the Mediterranean. That's right, the Turkish Navy isn't just back, it's striding across the waves with swagger. Enter the TCG Anadolu, Turkey's new amphibious assault ship and light aircraft carrier hybrid. It may not be the biggest vessel afloat, but it doesn't have to be. With a full-length flight deck built for drones and a cavernous mission bay ready for commando operations, it's essentially the maritime equivalent of a Swiss Army knife dipped in rich, black Turkish coffee. And because Turkey doesn't believe in half measures, it has also developed naval variants of the Bayraktar. After all, if you can dismantle an air defense grid from the sky, why not do it while sailing toward Crete? That's not a punchline. Greek naval commanders now check the horizon with twice the caution they used to. On land, the changes are just as dramatic. The Turkish infantry has gone through a transformation worthy of a superhero origin story. The ragged fatigues and creaking, outdated rifles of the past have been replaced with advanced modular body armor, domestically produced rifles like the MPT-76, and secure, encrypted communication networks, linking units in real time. Thermal imaging gear is standard issue for dealing with threats in the pitch black of night or when a PKK insurgent decides to make an appearance at 2 in the morning. The country's special forces are now among the most battle-hardened within NATO, from counter-terror sweeps in the remote valleys of eastern Anatolia to joint patrols across Syria's volatile zones. These troops don't merely train for combat, they've been living it for years. And while the conscription model still forms the backbone of manpower, professionalization is on the rise. The number of career soldiers and skilled NCOs is growing, forging an army that's disciplined, adaptable, and perhaps most intimidating to adversaries, well-fed. Yes, Turkish soldiers march with the unmistakable confidence of men who've had a full breakfast of menemen and tea strong enough to melt tank tracks. Meanwhile, in the defense sector, Turkey's industrial players are making the international arms market take notice. Aselsan, Roketsan, Havelsan, once obscure outside Ankara, now command respect and a fair share of anxiety among Europe's defense contractors. These companies are turning out precision strike munitions, cutting-edge radar arrays, layered air defense systems, and even satellites. Turkey's latest air defense project, SIPER, has already earned the nickname Turkish Patriot, though it should not be confused with the American Patriot system Ankara once hoped to buy, but never fully acquired, thanks in no small part to the politically explosive decision to purchase Russian S-400s instead. Which brings us to that. When Ankara decided to buy the S-400 missile system from Moscow, NATO capitals were stunned. Washington retaliated with sanctions and an abrupt expulsion from the F-35 fighter program. Many expected Turkey to retreat or apologize. It did neither. Instead, Ankara's answer was simple and defiant. Fine. We'll build our own fighter. That fighter is now here, the TFX, officially named KAAN, Turkey's first domestically developed fifth-generation stealth aircraft. It's still in development, yes, but its existence alone is a thunderclap in the defense world. It is proof that Turkey no longer waits for permission or technology transfers. It creates. This growing independence is making regional powers uneasy. Greece, in particular, has been losing sleep, and not just because of Turkish jets performing freedom of navigation flights mere meters above the Aegean. Athens has boosted defense spending dramatically, but in the eastern Mediterranean, there's a new reality. Turkey isn't just posturing, it's actively preparing. The same pattern holds across the Middle East. From the front lines of Syria to the streets of Tripoli, Turkish influence arrives in the form of armed drones, military advisors, or elite operators whose missions go officially unacknowledged but are widely understood. In the 2020 Nagorno-Karabakh conflict, Turkey's role was nothing short of decisive. Azerbaijani forces, armed with Turkish drones, trained in Turkish tactics, and guided by Turkish advisors, dismantled Armenian defenses at record speed. Ankara didn't just back a war, it rewrote its rules. NATO has noticed. The difficult ally, known for its fiery diplomacy, is now the alliance's most experienced practitioner of modern drone warfare, with battlefield-tested equipment and a strategic reach spanning the Balkans, the Caucasus, and the Persian Gulf. And here's the part that catches most people off guard. Turkey possesses NATO's second-largest standing army, surpassed only by the United States. So, what does all of this mean? It means Turkey is back. Not as a passive ally, but as a force to be reckoned with. A regional power with global aspirations, equipped with steel, silicon, and political rhetoric as sharp as a sword.